Hello and welcome to Last Week in AWS. I'm Corey Quinn. This week we'll have me in San Diego and LA. Next week we'll have me in New York. And the week after has me in Chicago and keynoting the AWS Community Day Midwest in Indianapolis, which you should attend. Now, let's see what AWS has for us this week. AWS Interconnect Multi-Cloud now offers a free 500 megabit per second tier. I want to see what the other side charges, but this may be a way to break, or at least end run around, the usurious AWS egress data transfer fees. Oracle Database at AWS is now available in 20 regions. The Larry Ellison expansion tour continues, now playing Zurich, Milan, and Melbourne. 8 more regions where you can experience the unique thrill of paying Oracle licensing fees and AWS infrastructure costs simultaneously with a private marketplace offer that probably requires a notarized blood sample. Your procurement team's screams can be heard 20 time zones now. Amazon Cognito now supports multi-region replication. Surviving a regional outage without locking every user out of their own login screen used to be a fun interview homework assignment, and now it's an add-on, available only if you've already upgraded to the Essentials or Plus tiers. This is unfortunately the kind of thing people will discover they need right after they really could have used it. EKS and EKS Distro now support Kubernetes version 1.36. That's right, which means your perfectly stable 1.32 clusters are now staring down the extended support tax like it's a parking meter that only takes bars of platinum. User namespaces hitting GA's nice, but I still can't get past the upgrade treadmill that never stops billing you for standing still. SES now supports tenant-level suppression lists. So, you'd think I'd have known this already, but it turns out that for years, one customer's spam complaints could quietly torch deliverability for every other tenant sharing your account. A delightful surprise customers get to discover during an outage postmortem. Now, SES lets each tenant fail independently, which is the closest thing to progress the simple email service has managed lately. Compute Optimizer now supports 32-day look-back for EBS volume and ECS service right-sizing recommendations. 32 days so it can finally notice your month-end batch job before recommending that you starve it. A calendar month has 30 or 31 days, but 32 gives you wiggle room, which is more foresight than the default 14-day window ever showed. Free at least, which suggests that someone with a P&L lost an argument. Cost and Usage Report 2.0 now supports Athena and Redshift integration. 2.5 years after Cur 2.0 launched, it finally does what Cur 1.0 already did. They're calling this feature parity, which is corporate for we shipped the new thing before it could replace the old thing. Querying your cost data with SQL now requires 0 ETL and only mild existential dread. Elasticache for Valkey now supports durability. Once again, I'm begging you to not confuse cache with primary data store. Once again, you will ignore me, as some lessons can only be learned and internalized via SLA breaches. Understanding how backups work in Amazon Aurora, a whole blog post explaining why your backup bill keeps jumping around. The short version, change more data, pay more, and the math lives at the storage layer where you can't see it. Free up to 100% of storage, then the meter spins. Bookmark this before your CFO asks, but it's still inscrutable. OpenAI models and codecs on Amazon Bedrock are now generally available. There's now a second model provider available on Bedrock. Previously, it was just for Anthropic. Hey, that's not true, some Amazon PM is about to exclaim. But if they're right, why does logging into Bedrock on a new account greet me with a banner about Anthropic KYC requirements? A streaming company named Bedrock that has nothing to do with the AWS service named Bedrock is optimizing its bill. The branding collision alone deserves hazard pay. Running 100% spot for Kubernetes is impressively daring work, but watching them write a custom termination handler to survive AWS's 2-minute eviction notice makes me question the decision's durability. From monolith to multi-account, Pinterest's AWS organization transformation journey. They ran exabytes of data in a single AWS account until 2022, which explains why their describe instances calls were basically a prayer. It turns out that the multi-account structure AWS has recommended since roughly the Obama administration has its merits, but migrations are hard. A solid blueprint, assuming you enjoy paying technical debt with compound interest. Gain visibility into DDoS attacks with flow logs and AWS Shield Advanced. Now, Shield Advanced runs you $3,000 a month on a 1-year commitment, and only now do you get flow logs showing who's actually attacking you. Bonus, the logs land in S3, CloudWatch, or Firehose, so you'll pay again to store and query the receipts. And it's EIP only at launch. Visibility, now sold separately. Identify unused AWS KMS keys and prevent accidental key deletions. Now, KMS is Gen Z slang for talking about suicide and should not be confused with the AWS KMS service, which makes me want to kill myself. For years, finding a key's last usage meant Athena queries against CloudTrail logs that cost more than the keys protected. Now there's an API. The catch? Tracking only started on April 23rd, so any key on touch since then looks dead but might not be. Good luck! CVE 2026-10591, Kiro IDE insufficient file write restrictions to execution-sensitive paths. Turns out the agentic IDE was a little too agentic, happily writing to task.json, so opening a folder runs wherever a stranger told it to. No workaround, just update to 0.11 and pray, letting AI write files anywhere it pleases. What could possibly go wrong? And finally, CVE 2026-10584, HTTPS fallback to HTTP in Giraffe Explorer. Under certain circumstances is kissing cousins with a lie. Since the circumstance is the cert wasn't there. Giraffe Explorer noticed and quietly shrugged your sensitive data onto clear text HTTP instead of, say, complaining. Patch to 3.0.1, or enjoy explaining to your CISO why encrypted was more of a vibe than a setting. And that's what happened last week in AWS. I'm Corey Quinn. Stay salty.